You set this empire on fire. I am just watching it burn.
I work for my wife's family business. Terrible idea, I know that now. But at the time, it seemed like the perfect setup. Executive role, good money, married to the boss's daughter. What could possibly go wrong, right? Let me paint the full picture here. I'd been grinding at Harrison Industries for nearly 2 decades, working my way up from basic operations to VP level. We handle industrial supply distribution. Not exactly glamorous stuff, but incredibly profitable when done right. My father-in-law, Richard Harrison, built this company from absolutely nothing into a regional powerhouse that moves everything from auto parts to heavy machinery. The guy deserves credit where it's due. He knows how to run a business and make money. Problem is, he's also a grade A control freak who treats family dinners like hostile corporate takeovers. The issues started becoming really obvious over the past few years. Richard's 2 sons, my wife Emma's brothers, got handed senior executive positions straight out of their fancy business schools despite having 0 real-world experience. Meanwhile, I'm the one actually keeping major clients satisfied, managing supply chain relationships, and making sure operations run smoothly. But here's the twisted part. Every single success I managed to pull off got spun as brilliant evidence of Richard's mentorship and strategic vision. My name barely appeared in company newsletters, usually somewhere between thanking the janitorial staff and reminding people to validate their parking. But every failure, every client complaint, every supplier issue, every time a delivery truck broke down in the middle of nowhere, that was all David Mitchell, folks. Front page news complete with detailed analysis of my learning opportunities and professional growth areas. Richard had turned blame shifting into an art form, and I was his favorite canvas. Family dinners at the Harrison estate were like psychological warfare disguised as Sunday pot roast. Richard would hold court at the head of this dining table that could double as a landing strip, dispensing wisdom and passive-aggressive commentary like some kind of industrial supply godfather. "David," he'd say, cutting his steak with surgical precision, "you're so fortunate to be part of this family. Not everyone gets opportunities like this." Fortunate. That word followed me around like a bad smell. Fortunate to work 70-hour weeks. Fortunate to take heat when his golden boy screwed up. Fortunate to sit at the kids' table of a business I'd helped build while Emma's brothers got to play with the grown-ups. Emma would just sit there sipping her wine and nodding like a dashboard bobblehead. "Dad's right, honey. We're all so blessed. Blessed to shut up and do what we were told without asking inconvenient questions about basic human respect." But the real kicker was watching Emma's brothers, Brandon and Owen, treat me like some charity case who'd conned his way into their exclusive club. Brandon, the older one, had all the business sense of a decorative houseplant, but somehow held the title of Senior VP of Development. His idea of strategic planning involved expensive lunches where he'd promise clients things that were physically impossible to deliver. Then guess who got to clean up the mess when reality came knocking? Owen wasn't much better. Junior VP of Finance with a Harvard MBA that Daddy's donations had basically purchased. Kid could barely balance his own checkbook, but loved lecturing me about fiscal responsibility and knowing my place in the organizational structure. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning that started like any other. Richard calls me into his executive boardroom. You know, the one with furniture that costs more than most people's annual salaries and coffee that tastes like it was filtered through gym socks. He's already planted in his oversized leather throne when I walk in, not even bothering to look up from paperwork that probably says nothing more important than pick up dry cleaning. Classic power move. Make the other guy wait while you shuffle documents. I'd seen this performance enough times to know the script. First the uncomfortable silence, then the dramatic eye contact, finally the verbal gut punch delivered with all the warmth of a tax audit. "David," he says finally, gracing me with his attention. His voice had that flat, emotionless quality that rich guys perfect when they're about to ruin someone's day. "Let's get straight to business. We're cutting your salary in half. Take it or leave it." Just like that. 15 years of loyalty, late nights, missed family dinners, weekend emergency calls, holiday crises, all dismissed like lint on an expensive suit. When things went sideways, I was the guy who fixed them. When quarterly numbers needed massaging, I made it happen. But when it came time for credit or respect or basic human decency, suddenly I was just some guy who'd married the boss's daughter. Here's the thing, though. I kept my face completely neutral. A skill I'd perfected during countless family gatherings, where Richard reminded everyone how generous he was for letting me marry Emma. Inside, I was doing backflips. because this arrogant fool had just handed me the best gift of my professional life. I understand, I replied, voice steady as a surgeon's hand. Perfect timing, actually. Those two words hung in the air like smoke. Richard's smug expression faltered for just a second, not long enough for anyone else to notice, but I caught it. He didn't know what I meant, and that little flicker of uncertainty was delicious. See, 3 weeks before Richard's salary limbo game, I'd gotten a call that changed everything. Rebecca Chen, COO of Chen Global Logistics, had tracked me down. If Richard was the king of regional industrial supply, Rebecca was the queen who'd been steadily expanding eastward and making his life miserable for years. Mr. Mitchell, she'd said in that smooth California confidence that comes from building an empire, we've been watching your work at Harrison Industries. Your reputation speaks for itself. My reputation. Not Richard's reputation. Not the Harrison family legacy. My reputation. When was the last time anyone at Harrison Industries acknowledged I might actually be good at my job? Rebecca laid out their expansion plans. Full-scale invasion of Richard's territory with distribution centers, client acquisition strategies, and enough startup capital to make my current budget look like lunch money. They weren't planning to compete with Harrison Industries. They were planning to obliterate us, and they wanted me holding the demolition charges. We don't want an employee, David. We want a partner, someone who can build something from the ground up with full authority over projects, budget allocation, hiring decisions, strategic partnerships, the works, full control. I'd forgotten what those words meant. At Harrison Industries, my idea of authority was choosing which coffee brand to order, and even that required approval from Richard's nephew who ran purchasing like his personal kingdom. I'd been sitting on Rebecca's offer for 3 weeks playing the loyal family man, but Richard just handed me the perfect excuse to stop pretending I owed him anything. That night, I told Emma about her father's little salary surprise. I walked into our McMansion. Yeah, I'm calling it that, despite Emma's insistence on family estate, expecting at least basic human sympathy. Maybe that sucks, or what's Dad thinking? What I got was Emma curled up on our sectional with wine that cost more than most car payments, scrolling Instagram like I was an Uber driver complaining about traffic. How was your day? I asked, loosening my tie. Fine, she mumbled without looking up, completely absorbed in whatever influencer was hawking skincare routines. Your father cut my salary in half today. That got about half a second of eye contact before she went back to her phone. Dad knows best. He's been running that company since before either of us was born. If he thinks it's necessary, you'll adjust. You'll adjust. Not we'll figure this out or that seems unfair. Just casual dismissal wrapped in blind family loyalty like I was some financial inconvenience that could be solved with belt-tightening and positive thinking. Emma, we're talking about a 50% pay cut. That's restructuring our entire lifestyle. She finally looked up and gave me that patronizing smile she'd perfected at charity luncheons. David, you're being dramatic. Dad wouldn't do anything that wasn't in the company's best interest. What's good for the company is good for our family. Corporate press release with better hair. I'd married Emma thinking I was getting a partner who'd have my back. What I'd gotten was Richard's spokesperson with benefits. Then I made the mistake of checking a family group chat I'd accidentally been added to months earlier. Usually I ignored Brandon and Owen planning their golf outings, but tonight they were discussing me. Did you guys hear about David getting his salary cut? Finally, Dad put him in his place. About time someone reminded Charity Case David where he stands in the family hierarchy. Think he'll quit? Doubt it. Where else is he going to make that kind of money? Dad's got him by the balls. True. Plus, Emma would never leave the family. David's stuck whether he likes it or not. Charity Case David. 15 years of working my A off, making their business profitable, showing up and doing the job. To them, I was still the charity case who'd gotten lucky marrying their sister. When I showed Emma the messages, she shrugged. They're just blowing off steam. You know how boys are. Family teases each other. Doesn't mean anything. Boys? These were grown men in their 30s holding executive positions. But in Emma's world, casual cruelty was just good-natured ribbing I was supposed to laugh off. Emma, they call me a charity case. Your brothers think your husband is a leech. She didn't even turn around from her vanity mirror. David, you did marry into this family. That's not exactly a secret. Maybe instead of getting upset about silly texts, focus on showing Dad you deserve his continued support. Deserve his continued support. Like I was some dependent relative instead of the guy keeping his business running while his sons learned golf and expense account management. That's when I realized Emma had never seen me as her partner. I was an accessory to her lifestyle, a reasonably successful husband who looked good at company parties and didn't embarrass her at charity functions. Over the next month, I became a master of professional composure. Model employee by day, secret weapon for Chen Global by night. I started building my own exit strategy, cataloging every relationship I developed, every client who trusted me personally, every supplier who dealt with me instead of Harrison's corporate structure. 15 years of relationship building doesn't disappear because your father-in-law plays power games. Like Danny Rodriguez at Metro Distribution, most people saw him as just another suit with purchase orders. But I knew he was a divorced dad coaching Little League who'd been frustrated with Harrison's bureaucratic approval processes. David, he'd told me over lunch, you guys do solid work, but sometimes I feel like I'm dealing with a company stuck in 1995. Everything takes 3 approval levels just to change delivery schedules. Or Sarah Kim, our operations manager who'd been wasted at Harrison Industries, where her process improvement suggestions got buried under, "That's not how we've always done things." I've been thinking about updating our inventory system, she'd told me over coffee. We could cut delivery times 20%, but every time I bring it up, Richard wants 6 months of feasibility studies. Sometimes I wonder what it'd be like working somewhere that actually wanted to improve. By the end of that month, I had a comprehensive overview of Harrison Industries' most valuable assets. Not the warehouses or trucks, but the people who made things work. The clients who generated revenue. The suppliers who kept operations smooth. Funny how when you pay attention to who really drives business, you realize how little it has to do with family names or corner offices. Rebecca had been smart about staying in touch. Professional follow-ups, additional details about Chen Global's timeline, never pushy, but keeping the conversation alive. Then she sent me an industry article about companies successfully expanding by hiring executives with established regional connections. Basically, a case study in everything I'd been thinking about. The real breakthrough came during a routine staff meeting where Richard explained his vision for the next quarter, like he was revealing the cure for cancer. Brandon and Owen flanked him like matching bookends, nodding enthusiastically while the rest of us took notes. Our competitive advantage, Richard declared, gesturing at a PowerPoint that looked designed by an unimaginative intern, lies in established relationships and time-tested processes. While other companies chase trends, we stick with what works. Corporate speak for, we're too lazy to adapt to changing markets. I glanced around at faces ranging from politely attentive to barely concealed boredom. These people had been hearing variations of this speech for years while watching competitors eat our lunch. After the meeting, I overheard Brandon talking to Owen by the elevator. Dad's really putting the screws to David. Think it'll make him quit? Nah, guy's got nowhere else to go. Dad's been carrying him for years. Without the Harrison name, he's just another middle-aged operations guy with a decent resume. Just another middle-aged operations guy. Interchangeable, disposable, completely dependent on their family's generosity. The fact that I'd built most of those established relationships Richard loved bragging about was apparently irrelevant. That night, I sat down and started drafting what you could call a personal inventory. Every client I had earned through my own work. Every supplier who trusted me more than Harrison's policies. Every employee who came to me because I listened instead of pushing them toward HR. The list kept growing. 15 years of showing up had built a network that was mine, not Richard's. These weren't just business contacts. They were people who had worked with David Mitchell, not just some faceless rep from Harrison Industries. Around midnight, Rebecca texted, "Timeline's locked. January launch means leadership team ready by December. Just keeping you in the loop." January launch, December deadline, 8 weeks to decide if I'd keep wasting years watching Richard and his sons drag the company down or finally take a chance on myself. I wrote back, "Thanks for the update. I'm definitely taking this seriously." Her reply came fast. "Because seriously, David, you're exactly what we need. This isn't just a job. We're giving you the chance to build. Build. Not guard something someone else had created. Not patch holes in a sinking ship. Build something new, with my own plan and vision." The November Industry Conference in Chicago was where it all came together. 3 days of panels and mixers where everyone pretends to talk about innovation while really swapping gossip about affairs and bankruptcies. Richard had been hyped for it for months. Harrison was a keynote sponsor, and he lived for moments like this. I'd gone 8 years straight, usually as his shadow, watching him take credit for changes I had pushed through. But this year was different. Chen Global had scored a last-minute sponsorship after another firm dropped out. Their Midwest expansion announcement was slotted right after Richard's big speech about traditional values. That timing wasn't an accident. Rebecca had a taste for dramatic irony I was starting to admire. Wednesday morning, Richard strutted on stage like a peacock in front of a mirror. Best suit, confident grin, the easy swagger of a man who'd been called a genius by people scared to cross him. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "let's talk about lasting companies, built on family values, tested principles, and staying true to roots while others chase shiny trends." He painted Harrison Industries as some sacred temple of industry, passing wisdom down through the family line. "We don't follow fads. We set the bar. While others reinvent themselves every few years, we deliver consistent service, strong partnerships, and personal trust no machine can replace." In other words, he was claiming credit for my work and spinning it as his master plan. The crowd clapped politely, the kind of enthusiasm you practice at conferences. Then the moderator stepped in. "Please welcome Rebecca Chen, COO of Chen Global, here to share major news about expansion and innovation." I watched Richard's smile twitch as Rebecca took the stage. He knew Chen Global was his top rival, but he thought they'd stay boxed in on the West Coast. Finding them here, on his stage, pitching his audience, was like finding out your ex was dating your boss. Rebecca owned the stage. Professional power in a tailored suit that cost more than Richard's, but looked effortless, not loud. She carried that California exec energy, confident, sharp, polished without trying too hard. "I want to talk about the difference between clinging to the past and actually leading change," she began. Every word flipped Richard's pitch on its head. His traditional values became proof of weakness. At Chen Global, we respect history without fearing tomorrow, which is why I'm proud to announce our Midwest expansion, bringing new solutions to a region held back by companies stuck in yesterday's models. This wasn't a simple presentation anymore. It was a declaration of war, dressed up in slides and a razor-sharp smile. Richard sat 3 rows ahead, his shoulders tightening as Rebecca laid out expansion plans with details that showed months of careful work. "Growth doesn't just come from smart plans. It comes from the right leaders," she said. "People who know the markets, who already have strong ties, and who share a vision of what this industry can be when we embrace new ideas." That was my moment. My pulse jumped when Rebecca's eyes locked on mine across the room. "Which is why I'm proud to announce our new Director of Strategic Expansion," she continued. "Someone many of you know and respect for his 15 years of contributions. Please welcome David Mitchell to Chen Global." The room froze. 500 industry players stared as I walked down the aisle. Like heading to a wedding, only this time I was saying yes to a company that actually wanted me. The walk felt both endless and instant. I caught faces shifting between shock, curiosity, and the quiet smiles of those who had seen this coming. Danny Rodriguez looked like Christmas had been rescheduled to July. Sarah Kim lit up like she'd hit the jackpot. And Richard, he looked like someone had told him his house was burning and the insurance had lapsed yesterday. On stage, Rebecca shook my hand while cameras snapped like we were signing a peace treaty or starting a war. I held the handshake long enough to meet Richard's eye and mouth, 2 words I'd been saving. Perfect timing. His face turned through half a rainbow before landing on a shade of purple best left to medical emergencies. Brandon and Owen sat frozen like kids trying to puzzle out quantum physics. The whole Harrison team looked blindsided. "David brings 15 years of operational skill and strong industry ties to our expansion team," Rebecca announced. "His results speak for themselves, and we're confident his leadership will make the Midwest launch a success from day one." His leadership, his record, his results. After 15 years of watching my wins credited to Richard's mentorship and my losses pinned on me, hearing someone recognize my real work felt like hitting the professional lottery. I stepped to the mic, facing every major player in the region, and smiled. "Thank you, Rebecca. I'm proud to join a team that values innovation and results instead of clinging to the past. Chen Global shows what this industry can be if we stop holding ourselves back." The applause wasn't polite. It was real. Phones came out, fingers flying. By tomorrow, every supplier, client, and competitor in the Midwest would know I had broken free from Harrison Industries. As I walked off stage, I met Richard's eyes again. The man who'd spent the morning bragging about market leadership suddenly looked like he realized his empire was built on sand. What followed looked like a planned demolition. Within 6 weeks, Harrison was bleeding clients, and staff. The first crack came 3 days after the conference, Danny Rodriguez signing the deal we'd already discussed. Morrison Logistics walked away with their $2.3 million account. In this industry, losing a client that size is a public vote of no confidence from people who know how your shop runs. Danny told me, "Working with Chen Global feels like finally stepping into this century. You guys actually answer emails the same day?" Then Peterson Manufacturing bailed, a $1.8 million account gone. They'd had enough of Owen's empty promises about delivery fixes. "David, thank God," their purchasing head said. "Owen Tanner couldn't plan a 2-car parade, let alone manage our schedules." Suppliers started peeling off too. Tommy Rodriguez at Midwest Distribution was first, and once he began talking about how easy Chen Global was to work with, the rest followed. Vendors sick of Harrison's late payments and endless red tape now had a better option, one that treated them like partners instead of throwaways. Within 2 weeks, Harrison Industries hit what Richard's late-night board meetings politely labeled supply chain issues from outside forces. In truth, suppliers were bailing or dragging their feet on Harrison's orders. The employee walkout was the real show. Sarah Kim was first. Losing her was like pulling the engine from a plane mid-flight. She knew every corner of the distribution network. When she gave notice, Richard scrambled with promises of a raise and promotion. "I appreciate it, Mr. Harrison," she said, "but I've already accepted with a company that values risk and growth over clinging to the past." She went to Chen Global as operations coordinator, carrying full knowledge of Harrison's weak spots. It was like handing their competitor a blueprint on how to knock them. Next went Mike Torres in accounting. Then Jennifer Walsh in client services, who'd suffered Owen's mismanagement too long. By November, 6 key people were gone. The rest looked around like passengers on the Titanic after hearing iceberg. Watching Brandon and Owen run things was like watching kids attempt surgery with the wrong tools. Oliver botched a major shipment by forgetting holiday trucking schedules. When Industrial Solutions Group complained, Owen's bright idea was to blame the truckers for not anticipating our needs. No one had told them the shipment even existed. That same afternoon, Sarah called, asking to transfer her account to Chen Global. "David, I can't deal with amateurs. Owen tried explaining trucking to me like I'm new, when I've been running logistics for 15 years. The kid's clueless. Her account was worth $3.2 million a year. Another client gone, not stolen, but shoved away by incompetence. The local press caught on. Chicago Business Journal ran, "Regional supply chain shakeup as established players face new competition." Everyone knew what that meant. Harrison bleeding out while Chen Global grabbed ground. By December, Richard went from strutting leader to panicked fixer. Emergency meetings every other day. A credit downgrade after suppliers demanded quicker payments. Cash flow tanked, making price competition impossible. Emma finally saw cracks when Richard started showing up to family dinners that were really disguised strategy sessions. "I don't get it," she said after one. "Dad's company has always been steady. Why is it falling apart?" "Markets shift. If a business won't adapt, it sinks." "But you work there. Can't you help fix it?" "Sure. My role as faithful son-in-law was to tank my own career propping up Richard's ego and lousy leadership." "Emma, your dad made it clear when he cut my pay and shut me out of planning. He doesn't want my help. He just wants me to obey." She stared like I'd suggested selling the house and joining a circus. "David, don't be ridiculous. Dad respects your input. He's just under pressure." "Respects me?" That's why I was iced out while his Ivy League boys drove the place into the ground, with shiny degrees and no real skill. Then, 2 months after the disastrous conference, Richard called at 11:30 p.m., sounding like a man watching his house burn while the fire crew washed their trucks. "David, we need to meet first thing tomorrow. There may have been some misunderstandings about your role. Maybe we can work out something better for both sides." Misunderstandings. This from the man who told the world I wasn't leadership material. Now that the company was bleeding, he wanted to revisit my role. I deleted the message. Some bridges deserve fire. Watching them burn with a glass of good whiskey is one of life's pleasures. 6 months later, I stood in Chen Global's new Midwest hub. Twice the staff of my old team, moving product with precision Richard could never dream of. Top-notch tracking, automated sorting, workers proud to belong to a company that treated them as assets, not throwaways. Rebecca walked up by the sorting station holding a sleek leather portfolio. "I've got something for you," she said, handing over a contract extension that made my original Chen deal look like pocket change. Vice President of Regional Operations, with equity that could turn me into a millionaire if growth kept pace. You've proved yourself. Midwest expansion is 3 months ahead of schedule and already profitable. Then she handed me another folder full of organizational charts. We're going national, 2 years, coast to coast. We want you running it all. Running it all. Real authority, real rewards. Not just an employee anymore, but a partner shaping a company about to dominate the market. Emma filed for divorce 3 months back once she realized my marriage value had dropped for her. Her lawyers even tried to argue my Chen Global role was community property. The judge didn't buy it. The local business press started calling me the man who dethroned Harrison Industries. Trade journals ran case studies on family firms collapsing when they failed to keep their best talent. Standing in that sleek distribution center, watching true professionals in motion, I remembered Richard's words. Perfect timing. He'd been right, though not how he meant. Cutting my pay and reminding me who had power handed me the reason to stop living beneath my worth and to start working for people who knew my value. 6 months ago, I was the grateful son-in-law, lucky for scraps. Now I'm VP of a rising national player, holding equity for life, earning respect I'd been working toward for 15 years but never given. I'm not just surviving family politics and corporate games anymore. I'm writing my own success story, and it feels damn good to be the one holding the pen.